All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another DCP All Stars exit interview. I'm one of the hosts, Ian Moorhead, joined as always by one of my co-hosts. Tonight, it's Alex Trias. Alex, how you doing?
I'm doing great as always. We're finally getting down to the last few exits. It's it's been a marathon.
Yeah, hey, I love the season, but I am excited for it to be over because post prod is long and difficult. Next, as always, we have our contestant with us tonight. It's my older brother, Austin Moorhead. Austin, you're having your third exit interview. I assume tonight you're going to be completely professional and act like a vet.
When have you ever known me to be? I'm just kidding. I possibly, but we'll see how it goes. I'm very excited to be doing this. I'm very excited to see you lovely people here tonight.
And tonight we do not have Lily, the queen of the exits. We have the princess of the exits. It's McKenna Inglis. McKenna, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. I'm excited and a little nervous because Lily does a great job and no one can live up to her, but I'll try.
True. True. Okay, well, I'm going to take the role of McKenna Feeney here. She always asks the first question. Austin, McKenna, and the rest of us would like to know your initial thoughts on. We'll start with Karen. So you show up to the marooning and Karen is there. What are your thoughts, if you have any? If not, we can just move on to the next person.
Well, it's obvious that she was the only winner of the seasons, right? That was there. So that has some weight to it. But I don't think I was really like nervous about her being on the season. I was actually really excited to work with her, considering that we went to the end in Yasawa, and I said, okay, this is another like bright spot that we can actually like commingle in. But I was never really nervous about her gameplay because I knew being the only winner that would probably have put a target on her back. So
All right, and then we'll continue through Yasawa. I mean, like I said, this is your third exit, your third game, so you have the most people, I believe, out of everyone. So
Yes.
next we'll move into Corey. So you see Corey at the marooning.
believe it or not, I was actually really wanting to work with Corey, considering that we got off very wrong on the wrong foot in Jasawa near the end. And I was hoping bygones would have been bygones, but clearly that wasn't the case. I would have liked to work with him, but man, maybe next time if there is one. I'm not sure yet.
And then finally, from final person from Yasawa is Jeremy. I feel like in the episodes we got a pretty good idea of your relationship with Jeremy, both from the past game and then this one as well. You two were kind of on the outs, but you see Jeremy, and
It's the first person I call. It's the first person I get in a Zoom with, and I said, "This is it. This is the final two. We're gutting up, and we're getting two." And wouldn't you know, the final two was the only out two, so to speak. So, man, probably should have played differently, but I saw an opportunity to take, someone I really enjoyed playing with, uh, and wanted to roll with it.
okay, and then we'll move into your castaways from Yasawa, or
Our
excuse me,
exile.
Exile. Um, First people that were on your tribe. First, we'll talk about Andrew Denson.
Super excited. Andrew and I were on the wrong. I technically should say I was on the wrong side of the Andrew vote. Wanted to vote him out originally, but I knew that him coming back, I wanted to mend that relationship a little bit more and see where we could bring to the table. And this kind of goes for all the people that were involved, not only in Yasawa, but in Exile as well, because we'll get into it along the ways, but mending those relationships kind of carries you along the way so you have a little bit of fallback in case anything were to transpire.
And then two people, well, I guess Andrew as well, but two people that made it very far in the game with you. First is Michael Zucker.
I was super excited to see Zucker because it meant that I could finally mend the wrong of the boo-boo that everyone always makes in Exile Island. I was a part of that, and of course, I made the dumb impression after the votes were, "Oh no, it's you," and try to blow up that game right from the start when that happened. That was stupid on my part, but it is what it is. I was super excited to have him here. I know that I've watched most of the exit interviews, and he said that, when it came to like not putting his neck out for me and everything, I completely understand that. I didn't expect him to really want to work with me, honestly, from the start, but see where it carried on.
Yeah, what was your alliance in Exile, the Triforce or something like that? And like right at the beginning, because there was the 5 amigos, and then there was you 3 in that as well.
Yes,
but
there was.
You really like to get a little bit of Spanish into your alliance names. I've come to find out.
Listen, I bring all cultures here. All right, I try to get everything in here.
And then finally, we have our winner of the season, Mike Simmons.
First thing I thought was revenge. As soon as I saw him, I was like, man, I gotta cut that son of a bitch right where he lied. But naturally, I knew you guys would have never put us on the same tribe to start. So I was like, that's kind of where I wanted it to lie. And then, as luck would have it, which I'm assuming we'll talk about, we end up on the same tribe. And I was so excited because, yes, the boys were back, so to speak. A little bit of Thin Lizzy in there. I really, really wanted to enjoy spending time with Simmons and all the other Exile boys to finally come back and try to win. Finally, maybe once.
Yeah, and that's all. I mean, that's 6 people.
But like you said, Ian, like he was the most connected person in this cast, and like let's also like put the other elephant in the room. You, like we said with Austin Garsow, were one of the last minute additions to the cast. So being like, because it's whether you were on the cast or not, everyone knows you were and are an all-star of DCP. But like coming in sort of like last minute, did that put like a little more chip on your shoulder, like coming into the season in terms of like what your motivation was?
I mean, I was let known that I was an alternate, and I was like, I right away my ego. I'm like, who's better than me that needs to be on this cast right now? Like immediately, and I was like, no, we're not gonna go there. Let's relax, tone the diva, take off the crown, calm down. But when I was finally revealed that I was actually on the season, I was ecstatic because it meant that that people had recognized my gameplay and knew that I could be on All Stars, which meant everything in the world to me. Was it stressful? Kind of, I don't know when I was known, probably like maybe 2 days or so before. But so I didn't really, I don't know, say if I had any really time to prepare. But I don't really know if you could prepare for Survivor in this format. I honestly don't think. So I felt almost chaotic and right at home.
Yeah, I think part of again, I mean, not to go into like too internal issues, but the part of the reason that you weren't on the original cast was because you knew so many people, and then of course you show up and you're the first. I mean, you're a first vote out, which is just super interesting. I mean, you really can't prepare. I mean, you said it well. You cannot prepare for something like this. You can't. I mean, you can do baseline preparation, but I think a lot of people, what we've heard throughout the season, didn't do prep. So I think you're in the majority for that, and you were in the majority for most of the game too. So
I was in the majority for the first vote out. So
and again, want to say before we get into details that I think you only missed 1 tribal this season. Again, you've played. Oh yeah, that's the stat. You've played more seasons than tribal councils missed. So
that's Jesus.
You're a true veteran for someone who's only seen 3 episodes of Survivor in his life.
Very true. I had gray hairs on my beard here before I shaved it to show how this aging process has affected me. So, but yes.
Okay, McKenna.
McKenna,
All
take
right.
over. Crack into it.
I can't say it. I feel like a fraud.
Yeah, you are.
Um, I guess just to get started, it was mentioned before, we have to acknowledge that you were voted out first, on your original tribe in that first or second night. Do you think had this not happened, you would have made it as far in the game? You know, we see you go out night one and then you're there on the last night. So pretty cool storyline.
It's a definite hero arc story, I would say, from a rags to riches persona. I firmly believe if I'm not voted out that first night, I am probably one of the first ones going home on that tribe anyway. So, as peeved as I was that it happened, I don't think it could have ended better for me, knowing that I was, eventually shipped off. Because at that point, I had, Simmons and others on the other side. And knowing that, I played off of, well, that tribe sucked. They voted me off. Of course, I'll work with you guys. I knew that the reason that they voted me off really wasn't that great of a reason anyway. So I knew that there were still those personal relationships that I could eventually build had I made the merge. And shocker, not a spoiler, I did make it and made it pretty far. So.
And you sort of call your shot for what your game is going to be. When you get voted out, you're talking with me while I'm like revealing the twist to you. And the first thing you say is, well, they told me I wasn't vocal enough, so I'm gonna be more vocal. And like I think it's very much seen once we hit the merge. Like you are definitely the mouthpiece of your alliance. Like you're the one who's being bold with immunity or without immunity, going out there saying this is who I believe is the who we should be targeting as a group. You are group focused, you have a mindset, and like every single time you wanted something done, it ultimately was getting done.
It's true. That's kind of where I was. I mean, when we did the opening interviews before this game even started, I said that I was going to play a different style of game, and what I normally mean by that is I'm kind of the one that's always like the viper in the grass, like waiting to strike at the various times, playing very very low to the radar, and I don't know, with All Stars, I kind of just wanted to switch it up, whether I made it far or not, and knowing that exactly that was the reason why I was voted out first, had to immediately switch ideologies in order to figure out what I wanted to do. So yes, I did call my shots. Yes, I put my voice out there when some others didn't, and ultimately I made decisions and they worked in the favor. Some people can say that they used me as a shield for that, but I think that the way I played, I was honestly really proud of myself. I thought that as vocal as I was, I still feel like I could have been more vocal, but it is what it is, and it's done is done. So.
Yeah, we're going to talk a lot about your post-merge game because obviously that's where a lot of things started to happen, and talk a lot about a lot of that at Final Tribal. Excuse me. But there's kind of a pivotal moment in your pre-merge game when Rick gets voted out. And Maddie and Simmons both kind of come out and say how close they are, and they expose that relationship. Was there ever a point where you were like, I have to get rid of Maddie to get closer to Simmons, or vice versa, get rid of Simmons to get closer to Maddie? Or did that never cross your mind?
Well, I want to say is I was as soon as I come to fruition and I'm like, Mike has to be the one to go home, I kind of made my bed where at that point, like I trusted them enough to make it as far as I needed to go with them. Now, yes, at times I feel like when we had our conversations, I was like, something's a little bit more in the weeds that I'm not knowing about. And that obviously meant that these two knew each other and were talking to each other more than they associated with me. It's obvious considering that, like, Maddie and I, before Simmons brought us in, we just did not talk. And it's not that we, for various time conflicts, to just always letting each other know last minute of things. There was always that little bit of thorn in the rows of not trusting Maddie. And ultimately, I think at some points, I wanted to double cross Mike and so many times, and I just felt like it wasn't the right time, and I just kept waiting and waiting and waiting until I realized, shit, has to be what it is. So there were times that I feel like, which I'm assuming we'll talk about later again. But yes, I feel there were times I could trust Maddie a lot less than Mike, and there were times that I could trust Simmons a lot less than Maddie. I just had to play to the strengths of both of them in order to quote unquote stay alive.
Yeah, a little tricky when, maybe cutting one of them's better for your game, but you might lose an ally in the other. And talking about that same vote where Reick goes out, we touched on it a little bit, but had Maddie gone instead, what do you think would have happened? Would you have linked up with Reick? Would you and Simmons and Mike would have been a 3? Use your imagination, I guess. What would you have done?
Yeah, no, I like the creativity with that. Honestly, I don't think if Maddie were to go home, I don't know if Simmons and I trust Mike anymore. I think we use him to the point where we realign with the Exile boys, and then that becomes the alliance instead of with Maddie. I feel like, because honestly, when the way that we were going anyway, I don't think very much would have changed. I think if Maddie would have went home that night, I think Mike would have been the vote after that. So then we come through with Simmons, myself, Zucker, and Andrew, knowing that that is now a 4, has a lot more room to play with, a lot more creativity to flow with it. And like I said, if Maddie were to go home, I probably wouldn't have felt as bad. She's a great player. But no, if Mike would have survived one more round, I personally thought about maybe taking him out instead of Sarah when we did what we did. But so
I think if Maddie goes home, I think the final 6 of this game is actually you, Mike, and then Kylie, Karen, and Andrew. I think that's probably the final 6, which is, not so off of what it actually was. But I think realistically, like, what are you and Simmons going to do at an 11-person merge when, you kind of have to work with Mike. Mike is obviously going to work with Kylie. Simmons and Karen kind of have a pre-merge thing. You have something with Karen, and then Andrew, is pretty close with all of you. So I feel like that could have become a majority overnight, especially because the Kylie versus Lex battle went Kylie's way. But yeah, sorry, just go ahead, McKenna.
Well, I was just gonna say, at merge, you come in, you and your alliance come in at the minority, and we talked about you having a vocal game, and we see that come in the next couple of votes. But at that merge vote, what were you thinking when Lex and Kylie were just started going at each other? Like, how did you feel like you needed to contribute? Was Lex your merge target? Talk about that.
I thought hallelujah, because we talked about it before the night before too, how yes, we're going to make it, but immediately we're going to have to put our guards up. Of course, that's me, Simmons, and Maddie. And nothing made us feel ever so relieved when we woke up the next morning and realized that whole different alliance on the other side was eating itself alive with the strategy blowing up of 2 different players. So yes, when Kylie and Lex are duking it out instead of worrying about us, have at it.
And speaking of your stats, your fun little DCP stats, in this game, you had the most votes against you of the final 3 at Final Tribal Council. I don't know if you have the most votes against you ever in DCP. Alex would probably know that a little better.
Yes, I don't even need to look it up. Austin has the most votes ever in DCP. Will never be broken.
Yeah, it's
wear that crown with pride, because guess what? It still got you the 3rd place, 4th place Final Tribal Council.
Yeah, the Yasawa revotes are the reason
They
that it
they really
Yeah.
they really bake in the numbers with the revotes of season 1.
Anyway, how did you use that like to your advantage and not have it work against you, where you're hearing your name all the time at tribal council?
I just had to trust that the people that I associated with had my back. A lot of times we said before, which I think this happened more with Simmons than it did with Maddie, but it definitely did happen with Maddie on occasion too, where they said if I say your name, don't panic. That was more of a throw off to make sure that everyone didn't know about the three of us. I mean, everyone had their kind of suspicions that the three of us were sticking together because we made it through all the way. But I don't think there was a point where anybody really saw that we were as tight as we were, because especially with Simmons and I having relationships with the Exile guys, that I don't think really people saw exactly how big that of cohesion that we had. So yeah, I'm trying to like remember the question now because I like stumbled in my brain. But I think that oh, I remember now. So when people said my name, I really had to trust the certain individuals that were along in the tribe that I knew that why would they vote me out now? It doesn't make sense. They're trying to get rid of the strong players, strong strategic game. And I just had to sit there cool, calm, and collected. There were some times where I'm like wondering in my brain, like, do you really mean that? But it worked out.
Yeah. And I can confirm he still managed by a single vote to have the most votes cast against him this season. Just narrowly beating out Austin Garsow.
That shit's wild. That's wild.
But all those votes, like you get 13 votes cast against you, 11 of them come at your first 2 tribal councils. The clean sweep in round 1 and the 3 votes that in the Danny boot. After that, you only get the stray vote from Mike Rick, and then you get the stray vote from Karen at Advantage Get-In, which saves you. So it's like, once again, you being saved by a wheel.
I listen. There's a rabbit's foot in my pocket somewhere. I made friends with a leprechaun down the road. I can't really explain it. It's all luck, man. There's no talent with skating by in those situations.
Um, I always talk about how lucky you are. It's insane.
It's a big part of these games.
Yeah. I guess we'll talk about final tribal council. You gave your opening statements. You're getting the questions from the jury, and we kind of see that some of them dismiss you. And why do you think that happened? Like we saw your reaction to it live during final tribal. But just looking back, if there was anything that you could have done differently, like either in the game or in your opening statement, what do you think it could have been?
I think the first one has to be just not having the knowledge, I guess, of how like I shouldn't say how final tribals work, but obviously going first in those situations when you've never been in one of those before is a little nerve-wracking. So not blaming Prod in the slightest for that, by the way, just so we're aware of what order was going where. Um, but yeah, it was a little bit of nervousness, a little bit more of the jitters and excitement. Um, I honestly believe what could have helped me better, honestly, was probably cutting Mike at Final Four. I feel like if that would have happened, I would have made a big case for myself because that's all we're trying to do as jurors is why is your game different? What did you do differently than everybody else? And aside from piece my vocals of where I wanted votes to go, there were some times where I felt like I couldn't tell my game apart from anybody else's. So I feel like maybe cutting Mike and taking Zucker instead would have been a better choice. Um, and as for like the final tribal, I don't know, maybe just I have trouble sometimes with listening in how questions are worded, how they're said to me. So maybe I just didn't understand at some points what they were doing. And as we all know, I have a tendency to ramble, and sometimes they might not make sense. The Austinisms, as they've been called, they should be a blooper reel of its own, honestly. Um, but yeah, it's I feel like there could have been points where, like, I feel like I said, like Mike being eliminated and taking Zucker instead, I feel like would have been a big push for me. The problem with that was I knew it was too late, because if I would have put Simmons' name down and convinced Zucker to do it, it would have been a tie and it would have sent those two. And then what happens when Mike wins, if he wins? That does nothing for me. That only puts him further in the driver's seat of making his case to the jury. And then if I do that and Zucker wins, then Zucker has a huge case of how his game worked. So it was kind of like a lose-lose situation. So I feel like, yes, I could have been more vocal. I feel like I could have tended more of a social game. I feel like that was a big part of what made me go to the end in the other two games, was my social game. And I didn't really play a big social game in this one. I kind of stuck to my trio and my two others, and I kind of just played it by ear. So social, yes. Vocal, yes. Soon to be winner, hopefully.
Yeah, the time between like the final four vote and final tribal council in a mini setting is like, in real time you're probably thinking, let's get this going, like let's get on with it, but in reality it's not that long. So it is hard to think back, what have I done for the last 48 hours? What have I done for the last 10 days?
It's something you like. I don't know. I feel like it's something you have to do along the way, or else you will forget. You will forget things because the day just it's a blur when it's over. Like you
Yeah.
just like when the game's over, you're like that was your day. So and you guys had 2 days of it plus the whole week before. So and that's especially where you would have to think of things you did in the pre-merge. Um, yeah, but like McKenna said, it's not long. It's like 15 minutes max before we can get the jury back in, and they usually have their questions ready. They're like, let's get this going.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and it's it's just such an experience that you can't explain unless you've been in it. And so you can't even prepare for it.
Yeah.
we've
And
all been there.
Yeah, we've all been.
but I will say, like, one, I'm glad you got a vote, because I think all three of you deserve to get votes, because like the big thing of the story is you said yourself, the reason why all three of you are there is your games are so entangled with one another that you can't separate. You can't. Like, if you let one of you go at any point during that game, it could have tanked all three of your games. So like, you all are there equally with each other. It's just now at that point, the perception, did I like this person more, did whatever. Like, I think of your three games, this was your best strategic game you had, like, by far. Like, it was so impressive. Like, watching it back only gave me more appreciation of the game that you were playing, because it was so hard in real time to really track what was going on, especially when you're hosting and trying to be very unbiased towards all the players.
Right.
But I just really wanted to give you your kudos, because I was talking with Ian the other week when I was visiting him. Like, I was just so impressed with how you navigated this All-Star game, especially with like having the fight from underneath right from the very beginning.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, I think everyone would agree. At least I think everyone agreed when the season was going that this was your best game. But I think especially now, having rewatched it and having seen everything, like I know Greg the other day said that like he asked like who we were most surprised by for whatever reason. He said you. So yeah, I think everyone was. I mean, I would genuinely say like your first game was just like inexperience. I mean, again, like your social game carried you to the final three. And then in the second game, you already brought it up, but the Zucker vote, like that really took you out of the game for like 4 rounds. I mean, realistically, you were like barely playing the game at that point. But then you came back and it was just too late. But yeah, and then this one, I mean, you were locked in the whole time, and yeah, I think easily, in my opinion, was your best game.
It's why some people are putting you on their Mount Rushmores in these
Yeah,
exits.
seeing how many, I'm honored, honestly, but it's like I thank you to those people that are doing that. I mean, that every time I hear it, I'm like, oh, that's so nice. Why? Why? Come on, guys. There's how many people here. Pick somebody else, please.
McKenna, do you have
Um,
any other questions?
I have one last question. Just watching now that we've seen all the episodes, watching it back, was there anything that surprised you? It doesn't have to be about your game, it can be about anyone else's game, but just anything from the episodes that you didn't know.
I guess I was surprised at how much attention people put into different perspectives of the game. Lex's wall was a nightmare to see. I was like, oh, that's like the White Beetles puzzle. It's like everywhere. You don't know what's what. There's so much, and that took a lot of time. And I don't have a lot of time. It's Shea's breakdown as Professor Shea was surprising. Was able to put in different perspectives of everybody else. Um, and just how like I was very surprised. Can I just say I was very surprised how I mean, I knew that he was on the outs with me, but I thought that Jeremy would have had a more better shot in terms of like the social aspect of things. And I was genuinely surprised when I came back and he was gone, and I was like, damn, like there goes another one. Like, come on. And just how I was surprised at how like wonderful everything from this season was, honestly. I think people have touched on it that there's a lot of people in terms of when these games are played. There's a lot of bitter people. There's a lot of people that feel like they were like at the wrong opportunity and were smited of it. And yes, I might have shown some colors of that at Final Tribal. I have apologized for that. But I feel like when it comes to this cast, I haven't felt closer to a group of individuals in a game setting in my three things. All these people are amazing, and the respect that they gave at Final Tribal of everything was kind of overwhelming. Honestly, it was very emotional, very overwhelming, and you guys as production rocked, they rocked, hosts rocked, I rocked. I was surprised at how many. That's another thing. I was surprised at how many costume changes I had, and nobody seemed to even pick them out during this entire season. Had a ball cap on at one point. Had sunglasses on at one point. I felt like the new Connor, honestly. Although no one can top him. So
True.
So true.
Well, that
Okay.
was my last question. Alex, are you reading Facebook questions?
I am. So let's
Awesome.
get into it. First one is from Kylie. Kelley, the player, not the prod member. Even though you all voted out the prod member. So Kylie's question for you is, Austin, I've been so impressed watching the episodes how seamlessly you navigated the merge portion of the game, even when you were the one putting names out there. The heat never came back on you. What do you think you could have done differently in FTC to get the votes?
I feel like, I mean, let's be honest. Like I said, at one point, I lost my cool, and I feel like if I would have been more calm and even tempered, I feel like things would have went better. I could have put the same amount of passion in without causing a ruckus, but that's what messy players do. I feel like at Final Tribal, I feel like I could have made a better case of, well, people didn't want to, like, we weren't social. Well, you weren't social with me, or you weren't social, like, or premising, putting into words different things. I feel like as soon as when I got upset, I feel like was just, I was out of the game for like, I was just like, my words were stumbling. Like I was just kind of answering without fruition and just letting everything go. And I feel like if I could have just been a little bit more even tempered and understanding with things, I feel like I could have possibly had a better shot at putting people's pens writing my name on paper. So
Okay. The next question is from Michael Zucker. Austin, which of your 3 games with DCP are you most proud of the game you played and why?
Well, as the typical ranking, I have to rank these, right? So I would
I
say
mean,
in terms of what I'm most accomplished with, and surprised with, I'd have to go All Stars, Exile, Yasawa. As Ian said, I feel like Yasawa was my breaking into everything. Knew nothing, still pulled it out for social. Exile, I take that next step of working socially, but understanding a little bit more how the game is played. And then this one was just, I felt like for a while, like towards the end, I feel like I was in control, which is never what you want to think. But knowing that knowledge and having that knowledge means that you are not only learning, but you're adapting. You're understanding what goes into Survivor. You're understanding all the possible ideologies and everything that goes along. So yeah, if in terms of what one I'm most proud of, it's definitely All Stars. I feel like knowing little knowledge and being on a cast of All Stars for one is amazing, and two, making it as far and finally going into a final tribal was impressive enough for me. So
awesome. The next question is from Coach Andrew Denson. Austin, why did you consider yourself the villain? Like, yeah, you were definitely the hitman of your Final 3 alliance, but I feel the people you actually talked to agreed that you were pretty chill and not doing anything wild to piss anyone off. It was great playing with you again, man. Can't wait to link up when I'm back in the Western PA area. Keep doing your thing.
rock on, coach. Yeah, so in terms of, because I know I said that multiple times at Final Tribal, like I played a villain role. In my mind, not playing a villain role is listening to everybody's perspective, talking with everybody, understanding what everyone's doing. I didn't do that this season. I firmly knew where I wanted to go with my trio. And then the only other people I really listened to in terms of plans were Zucker and Andrew for Exile. Anytime anybody else brought up, it was kind of just going through one ear and out the other. And that's exactly how a villain plays. They play with a cold face and they play with a poker face, and they know exactly what moves they need to be made. And you know right away, this isn't in the cards for me, but I'll smile and wave and let you explain. So, in terms of that, I feel like it's a villain role for me because not listening to where people want to go on different like sides, you always want to do that in Survivor. But if you sometimes that flips you off and you're left stranded. This time I was able to originally have it cut off, tie it back on, and roll my way to the end.
Well, you gotta know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away.
Know when to run.
Shut up.
I only did that because I knew Ian would get mad by me doing that.
I was going and then it kept going. I was like, that's enough.
Well, the next question for you is from Greg. And we sort of answered it during it, but I'll still give the full question anyway. So, Austin, your placements across 3 different games and game styles is kind of mind-blowing. 3rd, 4th, and 3rd again. For me, All-Stars is easily your strongest game. You led the game strategically at the mid-merge and set yourself up to make Final Tribal Council pretty much from Final 7 on. Biggest mystery to me is why didn't you seriously consider cutting Simmons, especially in the end game?
So yeah, we touched on it a little bit, but I knew the only opportunity I had to virtually get rid of Simmons and hold my game, it was at Final 4. Before that, we had Karen at Final 5, and we had burned every bridge with her before that. I knew if I let her stay, she was probably going to take me and ride nothing but bad things on how I perspired. So, great player, but I knew that we burned her too many times, and we had to get rid of her and knowing that the Final Four were there, and I've told people this how many times, because as soon as I won immunity, I had this thought in my head of repeating, so to speak, the Andrew vote of how that all transpired. And obviously it couldn't work, but the premise was that Simmons and I agreed at the very beginning of the season that we were not going to write each other's names down. So in my head, I thought, okay, if I can't get you out by writing your name down, I could get you out another way. And the plan was to have myself and I think Zucker vote for Maddie, and then for Simmons and Maddie to ultimately go the Zucker route. I won immunity. Those two would have been safe, and Simmons would have been sent home without me having to write his name down. Now, unfortunately, Ian made it the notion as soon as that was played that it would be what do you guys call it? Camp
Fire making.
So I'm like, great, never mind, whatever, losers. But no, even so, there was, like we said, there was a point where I thought the only way that this is going to make sense is if I do it now. But if he wins, it's just going to make him look stronger. And if Zucker wins, he's got a whole speech of, well, he brought me, so I'm going to do everything in my power to make myself better than him. So.
Yeah. Okay. I don't get the question. I'm sure Ian does better because he reacted to it. The next one's from Kyle, and it's very straightforward. Austin, Poppy or him?
So there are two musical groups. And it's tough, really, because I grew up with him. And I recently, Kyle and everyone here knows that my love for Poppy and her music is amazing. I would say probably Poppy, though. It's more of interesting. And you guys can shake your head all you want, man. I tell you, but it's great. I wish I really would have picked a different song to show y'all, but it's great. I love it. She's amazing.
That shit is terrible.
Well, we're getting to the last few questions. The next one is from Carrie. Austin, why are you so funny? Seriously, how dare you?
Oh, thanks, Carrie. Charming, good looks, and personality, I guess. I don't know. I don't. And just trying to. Maybe I make everything a big joke. Maybe that's how it is. I don't feel I can. Sometimes I feel like I don't take anything seriously, and that might spark of immaturity. But I feel like if you can't laugh at yourself and you can't laugh at things, why even bother having a giggle? You know?
Absolutely. Okay. Well, the last question on Facebook before we get to the rest of prod questions is from Maddie. So, Austin, what a game. You played the out in front role in our alliance masterfully. What I appreciate most about our relationship is that you and I were totally no mas. Simmons brought us together for sure, and we didn't chit-chat too much, but we didn't need it. We showed our loyalty to each other with the best tool we had, our votes. It was a riot playing this game with you. 2 questions. So the first question is, on the night where I spilled the beans about Mike, I sent you a very long and in hindsight embarrassing alliance love letters / plead my case message, but never received a response. What was your thought process when you read that message?
I mean, at that point, like, I really didn't know, besides Simmons, I really didn't know who to trust, because it was brought up that, Mike had told us that he didn't go to the high rollers room, and then it was revealed that he did. And then it was come to fruition of all of Maddie's things. And I was just like, I'm sitting there with Simmons. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like, this is literally the implosion of this. Like, we had something, and now we don't have anything. What are we doing? So at that point, it was like more of a radio silence thing. I just like, which is probably not the way I should have went, but I was just like, I don't know who to trust. I just need to relax and put the phone away and turn off the internet and just do something else for a little bit.
Go see John Mayer.
Hey, wonderful in concert. See him twice. Actually, three times.
Okay, and then her other question for you is, did you believe I had an idol the night we voted Mike out? And if so, would you have voted differently if you knew I didn't?
So it's interesting because Simmons had said that she had an idol. And yes, I told Mike, oh man, that sucks. No. There's no way I knew. Like I firmly believe that she did not have one. And it was ultimately that night where I had to make the decision. Is it Mike or is it Maddie? And in the end it came down to really I hate giving him so much credit. But I had to put my faith a little bit in Simmons and realize that Mike was more chaotic. And if there's one thing I don't want down the line, it's chaos. So I went with the safer option, and it turned out to be a great one.
I will say that was probably my favorite clip. I think that was in the blooper reel of him telling you about the idol, and he was like, "Did you hear what Maddie said?" I wasn't listening.
Uh, Sometimes I look back on myself and I'm like in this game, and I'm just like, why? Why did you do that? Why'd you do it like that? Come on, man.
But that does wrap up all of our questions on Facebook, which leads to my question. It's me, Mr. Positivity. Tell me one thing, one positive thing you take away from this All-Stars experience. I know the people are great. You all are best friends, holding hands, going to John Mayer together. I get it. Tell me something else.
Fuck the people.
So one positive thing. So I would say it was amazing to see myself in a more strategic sense of this game. Something that I did not know that I had when I started this. I said, this is another social aspect. And I really surprised myself, I would think, in a lot of different moves that I did, a lot of ways that I just put my voice out there. And I was like, well, it's here we go. Whatever happens, happens. And I kind of like, as luck would have it, so to speak, we always talk about luck with me, that I rolled the dice and a lot of conversations and they went my way. So that speaks to not only social aspects of, but that speaks to relationships that I've built. That speaks to where and when those people were voted out and how it would have ended up differently. So yeah, I would say if we're talking about something positive, I would be more positive about my sense of strategy for this game.
Awesome. Love to hear it. And now, Ian, your questions.
Hey, it's me, Mr. Negativity.
Yes.
I've been waiting to say that all season. Okay, first question. You're gonna replace. We'll do one from each season. You're gonna replace one person from your Yasawa cast that was on All Stars with another person from Yasawa, and then you're gonna do the same for Exile.
Ooh, okay.
So first, you're gonna pick Karen, Corey, or Jeremy, and take them out and put in someone else.
Right. Man, this is so interesting because like I look back on all the Yasawa relationships, and honestly, this might surprise some people, but I feel like I would take Karen out and we would have no uh winners in the game, and I would replace her with Phil. I feel like a lot of times we butted heads, and I would want that. I would want that in the game of us perceived as, butting heads so that we would ultimately work together. And I would, besides Corey, I can't think of anybody else I butted heads with more in Yasawa, honestly, than Phil. So, and for Exile, oh, this one's so tough, man. I could just be an outright ass and just say Simmons so he doesn't win, but I'll man, this is so tough.
Well, you only have two other options. So.
I know.
Well, he could pick himself.
Yeah, you could pick yourself.
That would be rough, wouldn't it? Let's take this. Suppose I don't. Let's take the bigger relationship of what the three of them that I had. Let's take Simmons out, and let's put in a firecracker. Let's put in one that loves to make waves. Let's put in Mackenzie. I would love to see how she would act with this crowd. I feel like she would do very well, and as quote unquote that she says that hopefully this time she would play less messy.
Okay. My second question is, you're a DCP Mount Rushmore. This can include all stars because the season's over. So, yeah.
So this is interesting again because a lot of times, like I've said, I've heard my name and I can't put my name on this. So now I have to be like,
You can put your name on it if you want.
well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not totally egotistical. Come on now. So Mount Rushmore, let's put on. I mean, I got to put Simmons on there. Love him and hate him, but yeah, I got to put him on there. I would say in terms of love for the game and a keen eye and paying attention to things, I gotta put Lex on there. Was a very strategical person in this game and in Trinity Falls. And I would say, like, I didn't watch much of the seasons as it goes by. Shocker, I apologize, but I did pay attention to Trinity Falls a lot, so he surprised me in a lot of things. So we have Simmons, we have Lex. I would say I would put Andrew on there for the amount of total games that he's played. Seems like that guy is literally in a game like every other day, every hour. And that speaks to commitment. And not only that, of how well that he played. I feel like, especially for this one, I feel like if things went different in Exile, I feel like he could have gotten to the end a lot quicker. And that speaks premise to his game and how he works. And the fact that he has a keen attention to detail. Always at the end is always asking about the jury. What's about this person? What's this? What's this? And that means that he knows that. That's wild. Get a hobby, man. Come on. I love you. Another. So we have Simmons, we have Lex, and we have Andrew. And again, this is going to be a big surprise. Had she had an opportunity to do more in this game, I feel like she would have smacked us. I'm going to put Lydia on my Mount Rushmore. The advantage challenge queen, so to speak, from Trinity Falls. Like I said, rewatched. She found a way out of every situation that went her way. Was wild. I was like, oh, she's going home. Psych, another idol. Psych, you want to cross someone's thing and it said DM or my name change? I don't do that. I sit there and pay attention. I'm either clicking my fingers or what. I don't pay attention to anybody's box. So speaks to details, speaks to what she can do. And again, if she would have stayed, she would have killed us. So that would be my Mount Rushmore. It'd be Simmons, Lex, Andrew, Lydia.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's been brought up in a couple exits. I guess now would be the time to mention it. But like the name changing is just so, like, you just grow used to like not looking at that stuff. Like it you don't notice those things. Like I'm looking at people's names right now, and if they change, like I wouldn't know. Um, unless you're doing that every time, you're not going to notice. It seems so easy, but it is just one of those things. You're looking at people's faces. You're worried about the challenge, worried about tribal. You really have to be locked in for that kind of stuff. But that has nothing to do with Austin's exit interview. So McKenna, take it away for the last question.
I didn't write it down.
Oh, okay.
You
Well,
know
Austin,
it.
we like to end all of our exits with the same question. If you could explain your game in one word, what would you choose and why? No fucking hyphens. None of that. We need a real word. And no Austinism for a word. We need a real word.
Man, I was really gonna put that one too. Dang it. Okay. Summing up my season in one game.
One word.
Well, it's also summed up in one game. Duh.
Okay.
But one word. Strategic. Feel like the strategy showed in this one. so much. And honestly, if I do play again, not saying I will, but I hope to be even more strategic than that. Heck, I might even have watched more Survivor recently. Who knows?
Well, I mean, I don't even know if that's true. But McKenna, Alex, any more questions for Austin before we close out?
No, it was just truly a pleasure to have you on for a third time. You provide content every single time, and seeing you evolve as a player these past few years has been a pure joy.
Yeah, it was really fun to watch you play again. After being a DCP super fan, it was fun to see it from, happen live.
No, I appreciate it, guys. Like I said, this doesn't happen without you. I don't join this without you. I don't stumble a lot without you in this. And I don't realize that I have a unique talent that I never thought I had without you guys in DCP Survivor. So thank you. Thank you. Thank production. Thank the hosts. Thank everybody.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been all season, I've been commenting on people that I've hosted. Only hosted you in Exile, but yeah, again, like I said earlier, I think this is like your best game by quite a large margin, even if the placement is the same to your Yasawa game. Yeah, again, as I say in every one of your exit interviews, like you prove every time you play that you don't have to be a huge fan of certain. You don't need to see every episode to know. You don't even need to see a whole season to know, how to play. I mean, yes, you get better as you go on. Like this was your third game, but still, I mean, even the first one, I mean, relate to people, talk to people, gain trust. Anyone can flip a cup. So you can do challenges. Okay. Keaton and Maddie struggle with flipping cups. And I feel like there might be another person in there, but yeah. So yeah, that's it for this exit interview. Should have two more coming out with Maddie and Simmons, and then the reunion's out soon, right? Reunion's out as well.
It's probably already out
in 30 minutes.
Okay, it'll be out soon.
We're dating ourselves here.
Yeah, and then that's it for All Stars. So, if you've been along for the whole ride, thank you so much. And if you've just started now or just stumbled upon us now, everything's on our YouTube, and then we have socials on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and maybe something else that I'm not aware of. So, yeah, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.